Child, let me tell you something that still gives me shivers whenever I close my eyes and remember those days. I was only 19, living in Dublin, Ohio, when my life turned into a nightmare I never asked for. You see, back then, I was full of dreams. I was working part-time at a bakery on Bridge Street and saving up to start nursing school. Dublin was smaller then, quieter, with everyone knowing everyone. I thought it was the safest place on earth. I had no idea that danger can creep into the smallest towns, and sometimes it doesn't carry a gun. It carries your own name. It started one cool spring morning in 1964. I had just come back from work when I received a letter in the mailbox. It was addressed to me, but when I opened it, it was a notice from a department store in Columbus, thanking me for purchasing a dress I never bought. At first, I thought it was a simple mistake, some clerk typing in the wrong details. But the dress had been bought under my name, with my address. Only the signature at the bottom wasn't mine. It was a forgery, but neat enough to fool a stranger. I laughed it off then, thinking maybe it was a small clerical error. But 2 days later, I received another letter, this time from a bank. A bank account had been opened under my name. The bank officer even thanked me for visiting their branch. My heart raced because I hadn't been near any bank in weeks. Someone was pretending to be me. Now, child, you must understand. This was a time before the internet, before digital records. Identity theft wasn't something people talked about. Most folks couldn't even imagine it, but I knew something was deeply wrong. I went to the bank, demanded to see the paperwork, and when the clerk pulled out the form, I almost fainted. There, on the form, was my name, my birth date, my address, all written in perfect ink. And at the bottom, a signature that looked frighteningly like mine. "Ma'am," the clerk said, looking at me like I was some kind of liar. "You already came here. I remember your face. You're the one who signed these papers." I shook my head, trembling. "No, sir. I was never here." But he didn't believe me. His eyes narrowed, and suddenly I felt like the criminal. And that's how it began. At first, it was small purchases, strange bank accounts, and odd letters arriving at my home. But within a month, my life became unrecognizable. Bills started piling in for things I never bought. Televisions, radios, furniture. A car was registered under my name, a shiny red Chevrolet Impala, when I could barely afford the bus fare to work. Neighbors started whispering. Dublin was small, and gossip traveled faster than the wind. Some looked at me as though I was living a double life. Sweet little girl at the bakery by day, wild, reckless spender by night. I felt the walls closing in. I told my father, and he furrowed his brow. He believed me, but what could he do? My mother tried to calm me, but I saw the worry in her eyes. One night I cried myself to sleep, whispering into my pillow, "Why me? Who would want to steal my name?" Then came the day that shattered me completely. 2 police officers knocked on our door. They said I was under investigation for writing bad checks all across Franklin County. They had witnesses claiming they'd seen me. They had receipts with my name. They had signatures that looked just like mine. I was stunned, my mouth dry, my heart pounding in my chest. "It wasn't me," I pleaded. "You have to believe me. Someone is pretending to be me." But the officers just exchanged looks. One of them, a tall man with tired eyes, said, "Miss, you're young. Maybe you got in over your head. If you cooperate, it'll go easier for you. Can you imagine, child, what it feels like to be 19, innocent, and treated like a criminal in your own home?" My father slammed his fist on the table, shouting that his daughter was no thief. The officers left that night, but they promised they'd be back. After they were gone, I sat in silence, my body trembling. Whoever this girl was, she had studied me. She had my name, my address, my signature. She was wearing my skin in public, convincing the world she was me. And the cruelest part, people believed her more than they believed me. I decided I had to find her. I couldn't sit still and let her destroy me. Every time a new bill arrived, I traced the address, followed the clues. I begged the bank for information, but they slammed doors in my face. Still, I pressed on. That's when I caught the first real lead. A woman at a clothing store whispered to me, "Honey, I've seen you here before, but not quite you. She looked like you, sounded like you, but there was something colder in her eyes." That was the first time I realized this wasn't just random. This girl wanted to be me. Child, after that woman in the store told me she'd seen someone who looked like me, I couldn't sleep for nights. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering what kind of girl would take my face, my name, my life, and wear it like a mask. I was 19, but I felt like I had aged 10 years in a month. I started walking the streets of Columbus whenever I had time off work, searching for her. Every shadow made me turn my head. Every mirror made me question myself. Who was I if someone else could walk around pretending to be me? I was losing grip on my own reflection. Then one Saturday evening, I found her. I had gone to a diner outside of town, hoping to clear my head. I was sipping a cup of coffee when the door swung open, and my heart stopped. There she was, sitting down at the counter, smiling at the waitress as if she owned the world. Child, it was like looking into a distorted mirror. Same height, same brown hair cut in the same style, even the same dimple when she smiled. But her eyes, oh, her eyes, were sharp, cold, calculating. I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It felt like my soul was watching itself walk around in another body. She ordered pie, laughed with the waitress, and handed over cash. When the waitress asked her name, she said it, clear as day. My name. My name. I wanted to scream, to march up and shake her. But fear nailed me to the booth. What if she denied everything? What if the police believed her, and not me? I sat there, trembling, until she walked out, swinging her purse like nothing in the world was wrong. That night I told my father, and he gripped my shoulders. "You're not crazy," he said firmly. "Someone is trying to ruin you. But listen, girl, you must be careful. If she's bold enough to take your name, she might be bold enough to destroy you." I nodded, but inside I was burning. I couldn't let her win. The next week, trouble escalated. Police came again, this time with a warrant. They searched my room, rifling through my clothes, my books, my letters. They didn't find anything, of course, but the shame burned in me. Neighbors watched from their porches as if I were a criminal. My best friend, Ellen, whispered at school, "Mary, what's going on? People are saying you've gone wild." I wanted to scream at her, but instead I grabbed her hands. "Ellen, it's not me. Someone is stealing my life." She stared at me, uncertain, torn between gossip and friendship. That was the worst part. Doubt in the eyes of those I loved. Finally, I made a decision. If no one else would fight for me, I would fight for myself. I started following the trail of purchases, stores, and banks. It wasn't easy. They wouldn't give a young girl much information. But I learned to listen, to ask small questions, to pick up details others ignored. One evening, outside a pawn shop in Columbus, I saw her again. The girl who wore my face. She was laughing with a man, selling off a radio. My heart hammered. This time, I didn't stay hidden. I stepped forward, and for the first time, she saw me. Her eyes widened for just a moment. Then she smirked. "Well," she said softly so only I could hear, "looks like the real Mary finally showed up." Child, I tell you, my knees almost buckled. Hearing her say my name in that mocking tone chilled me to the bone. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered. "Why me?" She leaned closer, her perfume sickly sweet. "Because you're easy. Sweet little girl from Dublin, nobody important. You've got a name I can use, a life I can take, and when I'm finished, you'll be nothing." And then, like smoke, she slipped away into the night, leaving me shaking in the street. I ran home, tears streaming down my face. My father was furious when I told him. He wanted to storm the police station, demand action. But he was a factory worker, just a simple man. The police looked at him the same way they looked at me, with doubt, with suspicion. The days that followed were a blur of fear. I'd wake up to find new bills, new debts, and more accusations. Once I came home to find a notice pinned to our door. Threat of arrest if I didn't pay a loan I never took. My stomach knotted every time I saw a uniform. And then came the breaking point. One afternoon, 2 officers grabbed me outside the bakery. They said I was under arrest for stealing jewelry from a store downtown. Witnesses swore it was me. I screamed, begged, cried, but they dragged me to the station. My boss fired me on the spot, saying he couldn't keep a thief under his roof. At the station, they questioned me for hours. The room was hot, the light blinding. Over and over, I said the same words. It wasn't me. But the more I spoke, the less they believed. At one point, an officer slammed his fist on the table and shouted, "Enough lies, girl. You've been caught red-handed." I thought my life was over. I imagined prison bars. My name ruined forever. My family shamed. But then, by some miracle, an old clerk from the jewelry store came in to give a statement. He squinted at me, shook his head, and said, "No, that's not the girl I saw. The one who came in looked like her, but colder. This one's too soft in the eyes." Soft in the eyes. Child, those words saved me that night. They let me go, though they warned me they were still watching me. I went home broken, but also burning with a new determination. This girl thought she could steal my life? No. I swore that night I would expose her, no matter what it cost. And I knew exactly where to start, by finding out her real name. After that night at the police station, I knew I had no choice but to uncover who this girl really was. She wasn't just playing a game. She was trying to erase me, to live as me, and to leave me in the ruins. I had lost my job, my reputation, and almost my freedom. But I still had my wits, and I still had my father's quiet strength behind me. I began retracing her steps like a hunter tracking prey. I went back to every store, every bank, and every place where she had used my name. I listened, I asked questions, I waited. Most people brushed me off, but a few noticed something off about her. One shopkeeper whispered, "She called herself Mary, but when she thought no one was listening, she answered to June. June, that was my first real clue." Through an old favor of my father's, we discovered redirected mail meant for me was going to an apartment in Columbus, 217 Oak Street. I went there one rainy night and watched, and I saw her, June. She walked out wearing my coat, arm in arm with some man, laughing as if she were the queen of the world. I wanted to storm up and tear my name off her lips, but instead I went home, burning with fury. I gathered everything I could, receipts, signatures, even the license plate of the red Chevrolet registered under my name. I built a case piece by piece, like a girl stitching together a torn quilt. When I finally marched into the Dublin Police Department with my thick folder, I wasn't trembling anymore. I was steel. I dropped the evidence on the sergeant's desk and said, "You've been chasing the wrong girl. The thief is June Harrington. She's living at Oak Street, pretending to be me. Here's the proof." For the first time, the officers didn't dismiss me. They studied the papers. They called in detectives. And child, when I left that day, I knew I had shifted the ground beneath June's feet. But she wasn't done. 2 nights later, a car slowed beside me. The window rolled down. It was her. June. She gave me that cold smile and whispered, "Stop playing detective, sweetheart. This is bigger than you." Then she drove off, her taillights glowing like devil's eyes. Those words haunted me. Bigger than me. But I didn't stop. And then the moment came. The police raided her apartment. They found forged documents, false IDs, and stolen goods. They found letters in my name, half-completed signatures, even a list of people she had impersonated before. June Harrington was her real name, and she had been wanted in 3 states. She had slipped into lives, drained them, and left ruin behind. And I, child, I had been her next victim. The day they called me to the station, my knees nearly gave out. The sergeant looked me in the eyes, no longer with suspicion, but with respect. "Miss, you were right. She's in custody. You are the real Mary. We owe you an apology." I cannot explain the relief that flooded me, the tears that welled in my eyes. After months of being treated like a liar, a thief, a stranger in my own town, the truth had finally clawed its way into the light. But it wasn't simple. Clearing my name took time. I had to testify in court, lay bare every humiliation, every stolen piece of me. June tried to sneer from her seat, but the evidence crushed her. Witness after witness admitted she had tricked them, that they had believed her over me. The judge declared her guilty of fraud and identity theft. And me? I walked out of that courthouse with my father holding my arm. The sky had never looked so blue. Dublin had never felt so much like home. People who once whispered behind my back now avoided my eyes in shame. My boss at the bakery even asked if I wanted my job back. But I said no. I was finished being small, finished being silent. That summer taught me a lesson I've carried all my life. Your name is more than letters on paper. It is your soul, your truth, the thread that ties you to the world. And no matter how dark it gets, you must fight for it, because no one else will. So when you hear me speak of Dublin, Ohio, and those days when my life was nearly stolen, know this: I didn't just survive. I proved to everyone, even the police, that I was the real Mary. I earned back my name, my dignity, and my freedom, and I swore no one would ever take them from me again.